Hello, my name is Chris Isayan, and I'm Certified Azure Architect. Recently, I had an opportunity to work on Azure Purview Rest APIs. Now, Microsoft has pretty good documentation on it, but I thought there were some gaps and challenges that requires additional clarifications. Let's get started. A couple of assumptions here. Assumption number one, that you've already gone ahead and created a client ID as well as configured it, because we're going to need that client ID to run the Postman requests. Assumption number two is that you have a basic understanding of OAuth and the different entities in Purview. Now, if you don't have a good understanding of entities in Purview, then no worries, I have a couple of slides explaining just that. Now, you can think of Dataset as the primary entity type which inherits from asset types and referenceables such as database tables. Now I have some attributes, required attributes that are needed to retrieve or update an entity. This slide is mostly business lingo, but what I want to highlight here is that there are some attributes that are out of box, and there are some custom attributes that you can add as needed. I hope this puts a context into what we're going to do next. Let's keep going. Now, the first step in this process is to get a token, then use this token to get or update something in Purview. My challenge for getting the token was that Microsoft said to use a GUID ID for resource, which did not work for some reason. So after doing some research and experiments, I found out that this https purview.azure.net works just fine. Now, my second challenge, which was really not an issue, it was a limitation in Postman. Postman did not have a resource attribute to get a new access token. So every time my access token expired, I had to go to this other tab, get a new token, and copy that over into this tab to get an entity from Purview. This was really annoying, but I'm sure there's a solution for it. If you know it, please let me know. Other than this too, I did not find any other issues. Things are get token is working just fine. Next, let's try to get something from Purview. I strongly recommend that you go to this website and review this tutorial. It has a lot of useful information. It has the API Swagger documentation. We can come back to this Swagger in a little bit. It also has the Postman collection. You can have this as a start. It also has some sample JSONs that you can try out. But what I want to do, I want to do something different. So instead of using the following endpoint, which is the typedefs endpoint, which returns approximately 60,000 rows of JSON document and it's very hard to digest, I want to try something simpler. Right now, you're looking at a much simpler borrow XLS document, which was in my storage account and got scanned by Purview. The borrow XLSX entity has no description at this point. We're going to try to update that. It has 3 classifications. We're going to try to retrieve those: social security, persona, and date of birth. And it has no contacts, which we're going to try to update. What you need from the Purview Studio is you need this GUID ID. You go to the Postman, you replace the GUID ID and get entity endpoint, and you run this. The Postman is going to return you the borrow XLSX object we just showed. It has no description, we talked about that, has no contact, and it has the following classification: social security, date of birth, and name. Next, we're going to try to update the description on this entity. Currently, you're looking at the update entity endpoint. In short, you'll see that I've gone ahead and simplified the request JSON body to only include the key attributes plus the attribute that's being updated. Now the highlighted attributes here are the key attributes. The description is what's being updated to. Now let's take a look at the Purview Studio to make sure the description got updated accordingly. And yes, indeed. Now, I want to point out a couple of more things. When you're updating contacts, you're not updating by name, but you're updating by ID. So you need to review your get operation to see, okay, whether the REST API is returning the actual value or some other mapped out value. The second thing that I want to point out is, or I want to show you an example of updating a custom attribute on an entity, in this case, a glossary term. Let's conclude. In summary, I think I successfully demonstrated get and update operations on Azure Purview using REST API. Now, I strongly recommend that you look for a use case in your area where the REST API is applicable. Write your comments. I'm interested to see your findings. And thank you for watching.